Tales of Willoughby Chase starring Mel Smith and a hound of a governess, Stephanie Beecham, on BBC2 in 10 minutes.
Sit tight this New Year's Day. At 5:55, be shaken, not stirred.
My name is Bond, James Bond.
And nothing ruffles your favourite secret agent.
How reckless of me. I made you all wet.
Yes, but my martini's still dry.
It's not all happy families at 8 in EastEnders.
Your father chose to leave. He nearly broke my heart and he nearly destroyed the lot of us.
At 8:30, Gary needs to get his priorities right.
Man's best friend should be his wife.
I think you'll find that pride of place belongs to his dog.
Welcome to Delhi.
A new life and a new love in India.
She's a girl. Do girls not like me?
The Peacock Spring at 9, with top football action in Match of the Day at 10:45 and the Stones play out at 11:35.
On New Year's Day.
New places and some familiar faces.
Last year I went to Australia for the BBC holiday programme. This year they asked me where I'd like to go. I suggested South America. They offered the Trans-Siberian Express. So here I am in Mexico. There's a sort of logic there. So why not come and join me and my new friends in fun-loving Acapulco?
Richard Wilson in Mexico. Holiday, Tuesday at 7 on BBC1.
Putting hymns on ice in 20 minutes, Pam Rhodes with a Songs of Praise special from the Ice Arena in Blackpool. A summary of the news first on BBC1 with Chris Loewe at 10 to 6.
John Major seeks to calm jangling Tory nerves. He tells party officials, trust our values and beliefs, and then the voters will trust us. But Emma Nicholson says she knows other MPs who may follow her example and leave the Conservative Party. Next week's lottery jackpot will break all records. It's obscene, says a leading bishop. And renewed protection for British fishermen. The Spanish are told, stay clear or we'll prosecute. Good evening. In the wake of the defection of the Conservative MP Emma Nicholson to the Liberal Democrats, the Prime Minister has told constituency chairmen to trust in Conservative values and beliefs. In his New Year message, Mr Major said these values were shared by the great majority of the British people. He made no reference to the warning from Miss Nicholson that other MPs may leave the Conservative Party.
As the Prime Minister was sending out his New Year message, Emma Nicholson was penning articles today and causing more shockwaves in the Tory party. She dismissed ministerial suggestions she'd defected because she hadn't been given a job as shabby, and argued that many other colleagues were discontented with Conservative policies.
There are also members of Parliament who are deeply unhappy, who I think may feel like me, that no time can be lost at all in trying to get the United Kingdom into the best possible shape for the next millennium, and who therefore may join me on the Liberal Democrat benches.
And the pro-European Hugh Dykes warned other MPs might leave unless the government moderated its policies. But that was rejected by cabinet ministers, who insisted Mr Major was defending one-nation values.
No, I don't believe that to be the case, and I also don't believe the estimate of 6 or 7 potential further defectors. It is extremely important in any political party for the party to bind together those on different wings, those with different views.
Mr Major, in his New Year message, urged his constituency chairmen to keep their nerve, saying 1996 would be the year when proven success would win through, and stressing the government's commitment to improving public services. Predictably, it cut little ice with Labour.
Well, he seems to be zigzagging around wildly. He's been spending months trying to appease the hard right and the Eurosceptics. Now he's desperately trying to reassure and stop his one-nation moderate wing from bolting.
But there was some New Year cheer for Mr Major from the Ulster Unionists, who made clear they wouldn't use their 9 votes in Parliament to force him out of government.
Ulster Unionists will still not bring to a premature end the life of Her Majesty's government, so long as the government acts in the best interests of the United Kingdom in general and Northern Ireland in particular.
And that's likely to make Mr Major's room for manoeuvre in the Irish peace process even more limited than it's been up to now. Martin Dowell, BBC News.
A leading Anglican bishop has condemned as obscene the estimated £33 million jackpot for next week's National Lottery draw. Last night's draw failed to produce a jackpot winner for the second week running, creating the possibility of a record single prize.
Dreaming it could be them, people who play the lottery are expected to buy more tickets than ever, hoping to win the biggest jackpot total so far. Last night's draw failed to produce an outright winner, so for the second week the prize money will be rolled over. The Bishop of Wakefield says the £33 million is far too much.
In fact, I'd call it obscene. It's far too much. It panders to people's greed. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil, and it's encouraging that.
And although some of the public might agree with the Bishop, it won't stop them trying to win the jackpot.
You've got to do, really, haven't you? You've got to do. It's that dream come true, isn't it? If you don't do it, you'll never get the dream.
I do think it's too much for anybody to win. I think I'd have to give half of it away anyway before I even started thinking about it.
Does it make people greedy? Does it make you greedy?
No more than normal. Just waiting for that big finger to come out the sky and tell us it's us.
The lottery operators deny that people are being encouraged to gamble irresponsibly.
We've got 30 million people playing the lottery every week who are obviously having fun, who are supporting the lottery. The vast majority of those people are playing responsibly and spending well within their means.
In answer to calls for the lottery to be capped, Camelot says there is a limit to the jackpot. It can only be rolled over for 3 weeks. Then the prize money is shared amongst the next tier of winners. TRIONA HOLDEN, BBC News.
Police hunting the killer of the French student Céline Figard are investigating possible links with a number of other murders. They're particularly interested in the case of Tracy Turner, who disappeared from a service station on the M6 in Staffordshire in March last year.
Céline's father, Bernard Figard, laid flowers today at the spot where her body was found. As he stood quietly, an interpreter spoke for him.
Monsieur Figard said that Céline came to this country because she likes England and she likes the people here, and he appealed to everyone to come forward and to help to find the person responsible. Anybody who has any information to come forward and to help find the person responsible.
At a press conference this afternoon, detectives admitted there were similarities between Céline's murder and that of 9 others, particularly that of Tracy Turner, who was picked up at a service station on the M6 in Staffordshire last year. Her body was found in a ditch in Leicestershire.
There are several cases around the country which are well known and have been previously reported, where naked women have been found adjacent to major roads or in country roads with similar injuries. Those are things that we will be looking at.
Officers are still looking for the driver of the white Mercedes lorry which Céline was seen getting into at Chieveley service station. Mr. Figard is expected to return to France this evening. Lindsay Doyle, BBC News, Worcestershire.
The senior British commander in the Gulf War has accused the Ministry of Defence of interfering in military tactics during the conflict. In a BBC television series starting next week, Sir Peter de la Billiere says RAF tornadoes were ordered to continue dangerous low-level raids against his advice. Labour has demanded an independent inquiry into the allegations.
At the start of the Gulf War, RAF tornadoes had a tough role, carrying out low-level, high-risk attacks. On day 1, January the 17th, they dropped cluster bombs on Iraqi runways. They flew at 50 feet through sustained anti-aircraft fire.
You feel completely naked. If you imagine that all of these weapons are highlighting you to the enemy defences and that you are the only thing in the sky. Meanwhile, all this anti-aircraft fire is flashing up around you.
Such raids were their priority. Accuracy demanded low-level sorties, but they were highly dangerous. Early on, Britain's senior commander wanted to change tactics because he was worried about the losses and didn't think low-level flying was necessary. The MOD didn't agree.
It was going to impact on the whole of the RAF strategy and put it into question, and as a result of that there was a great reluctance in the MOD for it to change, and we weren't allowed to change it. The commanders on the spot were forbidden to change it.
In the 6 days before the MOD ordered the tornadoes to abandon low-level missions in favour of laser-guided bombing at high altitude, 4 aircraft were lost in combat. Although the RAF flew only a small percentage of all Allied raids in the first week of the war, they sustained around a quarter of the coalition's total losses.
I think it was quite disgraceful interference by the Ministry of Defence in the tactics, not the policy, not the strategy of the war, the tactics of running that war.
The General Superior at the time believes lessons can be learnt from all of this.
Greater flexibility is the one real message that comes home to me. You need to be able to continue to exercise the low-level operation where it is sensible to do that. On the other hand, you need to be able to deliver weapons accurately from medium altitude.
Officials at the MOD have declined to comment until they've seen the BBC documentary. Peter Hunt, BBC News.
And you can see more on that story in a 4-part television series, The Gulf War, which begins next Sunday on BBC1 at 9:05. American forces have begun the latest stage of their deployment in Bosnia with the completion of a new bridge. It enables tanks and other vehicles to cross the River Sava on their way to their new headquarters at Tuzla. It's the biggest military bridge the Americans have built since the Second World War.
It was a battle against time, Mother Nature and the rain-swollen Sava River, but today American engineers won. They had worked through the night to complete the 2,000-foot-long aluminium bridge, the biggest built by US forces since they crossed the Rhine in 1945 to march on Berlin. The bridge will be the main route for the 20,000 US troops coming to Bosnia as part of the peace implementation force. The commander of the engineers said his men would be celebrating New Year's Eve by sleeping. Also seeing in the new year in Bosnia is Bono, lead singer of the rock group U2. He toured Sarajevo with Bosnia's Foreign Minister Mohamed Shashirbi, visiting scenes of devastation, including the National Library, reduced to rubble in a Serb mortar attack in 1992.
Nothing really prepares you for the destruction. And my first impression was that if people can live through this, they must be a very extraordinary people indeed, and that they must have a great future.
There is renewed belief in the future here, demonstrated by the fact that the birth rate, down 80% during the war, is creeping back up. This baby girl was born in Sarajevo on Christmas Day. Her mother says she now has more optimism about what 1996 will bring for her and her child. Orla Guerin, BBC News, Sarajevo.
Spanish fishermen who fish illegally in British waters will be prosecuted, according to the Fisheries Minister Tony Baldry. Under a new agreement which comes into force at midnight, up to 40 Spanish trawlers will be allowed to fish in part of the Irish Box. Today, Mr Baldry was on board HMS Lindisfarne, which will patrol the area.
Preparing for duty, the crew of the fisheries protection vessel Lindisfarne. From tomorrow, she'll be patrolling the so-called Irish Box as 20 Spanish trawlers prepare to fish in an area traditionally the rich picking grounds of UK boats. The fisheries minister was on board with a message for Spanish skippers thinking of breaking the law.
If a Spanish trawler that's not allowed to be in the Irish Box is there, they'll be apprehended, they'll be taken into port, they'll be prosecuted, and they'll be liable to a fine of some £50,000. So it'll be a very stupid Spanish skipper who seeks to break the law.
The Lindisfarne has orders to stop and search any vessels suspected of fishing illegally by using undersized nets or catching baby fish. And the government is anxious to allay fears of fishermen that the Spanish will be able to flout the regulations. But Southwest fishing leaders still believe there could be trouble on the high seas as UK boats and Spanish vessels start to compete for the first time in the Irish Box.
As the minister said, there's too many boats fighting for too few fish. So there's going to be trouble. He's putting fishermen against fishermen.
By this evening, HMS Lindisfarne will be in position in the Irish Box, anxious to prove that no skipper will be able to ignore the regulations, whether they're Spanish or British. Stephen Cape, BBC News, Portsmouth.
And that's all for now. Edward Sturton will be here with the last scheduled news of the year at 10 to 10. Good night.
Hello there, very good evening to you. If you're out and about celebrating tonight, watch out for the mist and the fog. It could become quite troublesome in many areas as the night wears on. Some rain and sleet still to move northwards over Scotland, some further heavier rain coming in from the south across Northern Ireland as the evening wears on. But as I said elsewhere, it's the mist and fog probably going to be the major problem as we go through the night. Drizzly bits of rain persisting in other parts of England and Wales, but as you can see, the main prospect of the mist and the fog in those central and southern areas, the sleet and snow still over the northern parts of Scotland as we go through the night. There's the dividing line for tomorrow, the milder air feeding in from the southwest, the colder conditions gradually edging away from the northeast. So it's a fairly dull start across many parts of the country. I think as we go through the day into the afternoon, we are going to find much of central and southern Britain brightening up a bit, but many places staying fairly cloudy. Hint of brightness into some western areas, a shower or two in the south, and as the sleet and snow travels northward, it'll mostly turn to rain. That's it from me. Happy New Year.
Welcome in the new year with BBC1, and at 6:45, treasures from the past in a new series of the Antiques Roadshow. At 7:30,
time to wheel out the rice pudding and the homemade raspberry jam.
But will Henry's cooking save the day in the new series of Pie in the Sky?
I just want to dance our steps.
There's a network television premiere at 8:20. It's Strictly Ballroom.
What is so wrong with the way I dance?
I would like to make 1 or 2 changes.
The stars get into step with Morecambe & Wise at 10:05. And at 11, Angus Deaton and guests see the old year out and welcome the new year in. Have a happy new year with BBC1.
You're watching BBC1 for the East Midlands.
Good evening. A man who died after a struggle at a house in Derbyshire may have been a burglar. The incident happened in Ockbrook near Derby last night. Late this afternoon, the police said they'd identified the dead man as a 22-year-old from Derby. He hasn't yet been named. Jonathan Taylor reports.
The house detectives were called to is on Victoria Avenue, a busy slip road of the Nottingham-bound carriageway of the A52. The police say there had been a break-in, followed by a struggle between the dead man and the householder, 53-year-old Nicholas Baumgartner.
There's been a burglary at the premises. There is evidence that the forcible entry down the side of the house, and there's been some sort of struggle taking place inside the house.
The police say several witnesses have reported seeing Mr. Baumgartner in the front garden of his house during the incident, waving, trying to attract their attention. They're now appealing for anyone else who may have seen anything to come forward. Mr. Baumgartner is still under sedation in hospital. The police are hoping to speak to him later this evening.
The A46 Newark bypass was closed for much of the day after an accident which left a young woman seriously ill in hospital. A car collided with a tractor and trailer close to the sewage works. The emergency services spent several hours freeing the driver and 2 passengers who were trapped under the trailer. Youngsters in Lincolnshire are being given the chance to learn how to drive a car before they're old enough to take one on the road. They're taking part in a special course supported by the Lincolnshire Fire Brigade, which intends to introduce them to the perils of driving.
Like thousands of other 15 and 16-year-olds, the classroom's a familiar place to learn. Only these youngsters are learning how to drive. The 3-day course is run by BAS BLACKBOURNE, a local driving instructor. He says the dangers of driving can't be taught too soon. The course is being run at Lincolnshire's Fire Brigade headquarters. Officers say young drivers make up more than half the casualties in serious accidents, and the course could make their job easier.
With about 800 accidents so far in 1995, and the majority of those finish up with us cutting people out of wrecks, anything that saves that sort of carnage will help.
Away from the classroom, there's a chance to try out basic driving skills within the headquarters. It's intended to give them a feel for driving a car before they receive instruction on the roads. Although the course stresses the dangers, care is taken not to frighten them out of wanting to drive.
They get a tremendous boost to their morale, to their confidence, to their actual driving ability. Before they actually come on the road, they're able to manoeuvre the vehicle, as you can see here today. We do a lot more than just driving around here, and they will be quite proficient by the time they get on the road.
But to make sure the message gets home, the young drivers are taken to see a graphic display at RAF Waddington. A crashed car and 2 dummies recreate the horrific scene of a road accident.
I'm not scared, but I'm wary, I think, of what could happen if you either lose control or you're just dangerous, really.
Makes you understand more about driving and probably help you when it comes to taking the test and that.
It's hoped that when the youngsters do start taking lessons, they'll have a better understanding of the risks they take every time they get behind the wheel.
There are reports today of sightings of 4 Western men, one a student from Nottingham, who are being held hostage in Kashmir. Photography student Paul Wells and the other hostages have been held by militants for nearly 6 months. They were kidnapped while trekking in the mountains of southern Kashmir. An Indian news agency has reported seeing them surrounded by armed men. 40 people lost their jobs this afternoon when the food court in Nottingham's Victoria Centre closed down. The fast food outlets are being shut to make way for a new House of Fraser department store. The new shop will eventually provide around 700 new jobs. The continuing wintry weather is still playing havoc with the festive sporting schedules. Tomorrow's racing at Leicester and Market Raisin's been abandoned, and Notts County's game against York and Peterborough's against Swindon have been postponed. That's the news from the East Midlands. Have a very good new year.